2022 ẹ káàbọ̀ sí ètò wa tòní. Ẹ ṣeun tí ẹ darapọ̀ mọ́ wa. Bí ẹ ṣe mọ̀, orúkọ mi ni Yorubamama. À ń dúró de olóòtú àgbà wa Lumee láti darapọ̀ mọ́ wa. Wọ́n fojú wa sọ́nà díẹ̀ ṣùgbọ́n ẹ ṣáà ní sùúrù pẹ̀lú wa àtó bẹ̀rẹ̀. Ẹ ṣeun, ẹ káalẹ́ o, ṣe dáadáa lẹ́wà. Ẹbí darapọ̀ mọ́. Ẹ ṣeun tí ẹ darapọ̀ mọ́ wa. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. It will be in both English and Yoruba. And I will be looking out for questions and comments. So please sit tight while we await our guest today. This is the second edition of this live series. The first time I spoke with German-Yoruba, the poet, author, performer. So you can look out for that. It's in my feed, my gallery. So you can look out for that if you were not here at the last time. It's nice to have you join us. Ẹ ṣeun púpọ̀. Ṣé gbogbo kìràkìtà ò ní lọ dáadáa? Sister Ayo, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're expecting my guest today, Olootu Lumee, and we'll be talking about all things Yoruba radio, Yoruba culture, Yoruba presenting, nostalgia. This is the second of the series. The first time I spoke with German-Yoruba, the poet and author, and it was very insightful. So I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. I'll be looking out for your comments and your questions while I speak to Olootu Agba. Ẹ̀bá wa ní sùúrù fún wa, wọ́n ti fojú wa sọ́nà díẹ̀ ṣùgbọ́n wọ́n ti jẹ́ ká mọ̀ pé níbi ìṣẹ́jú márùn-ún àwọn á darapọ̀ mọ́ wa. Mọ̀ pé a lè ṣe ká má ní ṣe ti African time tiwa díẹ̀díẹ̀. Àwọn ará bíi ni a máa ń tètè yára sí nǹkan. Ẹ káàbọ̀ Olootu Agba Lumee. Ẹ káalẹ́ o níbi tẹ́ wà. Ẹ káàbọ̀ sí abala kejì ìjíròrò wa. Mo ti ń gbìyànjú àti gbé yín wọlé. Agba's here and he's trying to join. Wà ń bẹ̀ pẹ̀lú wa, Lumee. Ẹ káàbọ̀, ṣe dáadáa lẹ dé. A ti ń retí yín. He keeps saying he isn't able to join. Why is he not able to join? Accepted the request. Ẹ má bínú. Ẹ mọ̀ pé ọ̀rọ̀ technology ó máa ń ṣòro fáwa kan. I'm trying to go live. Èmi gan ti ń rí request mi Olootu Agba. Mo ń rí, mo dẹ̀ ń gbìyànjú àti accept go live with Lumee. Coming up. Ẹ jọ̀ọ́ tún bá mi request ẹ o. You have no requests now. I'll try to add you again. I've invited you. Allow I do. Okay, adding. I do that. Okay.
Well, finally, àti wà ń bí o.
Ẹ tọ́jú wa sọ́nà báyìí. Kí ló wá dé báyìí?
Ẹ jọ̀ọ́ ẹ má bínú sí mi. Mi ò wágo pé aago 6 ti lù ní. Ẹ má bínú sí mi. Ìta mo dẹ̀ wá ń sí.
Àkókò lè bínú sí yín. Ẹ̀yin
Gbogbo
náà
bàtẹ ní
ṣàgbà wa.
African time.
African time wà.
Mo ti fi
Àwọn tèmi
ìwà
ló
tí
bá
ò
bá
dáa mo
yín.
ti fi hàn.
Kí lẹ rí?
Mo ní ìwà tí ò dáa mo ti gbé dé bíbá yìí. Ọlọ́run ṣàánú.
Díẹ̀díẹ̀ náà ni kò tètè kúrò lára ṣùgbọ́n Elédùmarè á ràn wá lọ́wọ́ ẹ káàbọ̀. And then I obviously understand that technology plays a part in all of this. Òun la ti ń try láti gbé yín wọlé látẹ̀ nǹkan yẹn tí yẹn náà tún gbá bí
Yíyẹ náà ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ẹ.
Ẹ ṣe o, ẹ kú sùúrù. Ẹ kú sùúrù wa o.
Ṣeun o.
Ẹ káàbọ̀.
Ẹ ṣé o.
Dédé wòyí.
Ẹ ṣeun.
Olóòtú àgbà wa Lumee ló darapọ̀ mọ́ wa yìí o. Ẹ bá wa dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ wọn. Àtẹ̀yìn ìtẹ̀lé wa náà tẹ̀ wá pẹ̀lú wa ní abala kejì ìjíròrò nípa gbogbo nǹkan Yorùbá. Gbogbo ṣíṣe Yorùbá tí àwọn èèyàn kàbìkàbì, àwọn èèyàn kàǹkà bíi olóòtú wa Lumee. Wọ́n ń ṣe gbogbo nǹkan tó ń gbé ṣe la fẹ́ mọ̀, la fẹ́ wá, la fẹ́ fi ọ̀rọ̀ wá wọn lẹ́nu nípa lénìí yìí o. Ẹ kú dédé wòyí nílé lóko. Bí a ṣe mọ orúkọ mi ní Ṣọlá Òjìkùtù. Èmi náà ni wọ́n ń pè ní Yorubamama. Lónìí Ọjọ́bọ̀, ọjọ́ 11 oṣù Ọ̀pẹ. Mo ní àǹfààní láti ní ìjíròrò pẹ̀lú Lumee. Thank you very much for accepting my invite. Ó ní nǹkan púpọ̀ tẹ́ ń ṣe àwọn òyìn. And this time we want to, hear more from you, get to know you a bit more. And thank you for coming. I will let you introduce yourself. Mo mọ̀ pé èèyàn púpọ̀ wọ́n yẹn. Bí n ṣe ń bá èèyàn sọ̀rọ̀ pé mo máa interview Lumee lẹ́nu. Wọ́n ní, Lumee, I love him so much. He does this and he does that. So, please, I will not even attempt to grasp all that you are and all that you do. So, ẹ bá wa ẹ sọ fún wa nípa ara yín.
So, orúkọ mi gangan orúkọ tí wọ́n sọ mí láti ilé ni Michael Adelako Olúwadámiláre. Tí ìnagijẹ mi, that's my nickname, sì jẹ́ Lumee. Orúkọ tí mò ń lò lórí social media tó sì jẹ́ Olóòtú àgbà yẹn, Olóòtú àgbà Lumee, presenter tó yáyì. Jagunlabi tí ń pe ara lé bí ẹni para oko. The Global Yoruba Voice, lágbára Ọlọ́run, the Global Yoruba Storyteller, lógo tí ń jẹ́ ti Ọlọ́run.
Fantastic, Ashegan. Thank you very much. So I'm going to go right into it. Báwo ni ìnagijẹ yín ṣe jẹ́ Lumee?
Fantastic question nìyẹn torí kì í ṣe orúkọ mi, bẹ́ẹ̀ kì í ṣe ìnagijẹ mi gangan directly, mo jí ni. Bàbá mi ló ń jẹ́ Olúmídé, tí Olúmídé bẹ̀ wá mú Lumee jáde. Ìgbà tí ó di abala kan náà ayé tèmi náà tí mò ń wá orúkọ tí màá lò fi ṣe mọ̀ kéèyàn kan fi feel funky and all that. This was back in secondary school. Àwọn option tó wà nílẹ̀ fún mi ò kọjá tó lórúkọ mi jẹ́ Michael, kò jọ kọjá Mikey, Mike, Maikoko, Maiko Ade tó sì jẹ́ wípé gbogbo ẹ̀ pátápátá kò sí tèmi tí ẹ̀ gbádùn. Mà tó wá yá, wọ́n rò pé orúkọ tí bàbá mi ní tó ń lọ yọ̀ rẹ̀ dìrì kò sí tó burú bí kémi náà gbórúkọ bàbá mi lárugẹ kí n dẹ̀ kó di legacy bí àṣà àwọn ilé ìbò. So I picked that up and I started using Lumee as my nickname. Thanks to some persons in my life anyways. Àwọn èèyàn kan tẹ̀ sí ń pè mí Lumee kí n tó ti ẹ̀bẹ̀ sí ní pera mi gan Lumee, so it just came naturally.
That is fantastic because that is what I thought. So ìgbà tí àwọn ń ṣe ìwádìí díẹ̀díẹ̀ nípa yín kí a tó ṣe kí ètò yìí mo rò pé Olúmídé máa wà lára orúkọ yín torí Lumee yẹn mo mọ̀ àwọn Olúmídé ló máa ń jẹ́ Lumee. Ṣùgbọ́n mi ò ṣáàrí bí kankan tẹ́nìkan ti pè ní Olúmídé. Ṣé ẹ ní orúkọ Yorùbá?
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni.
Jẹ́ tí kí ni orúkọ Yorùbá tí yín?
Gbádégẹṣin.
Gbádégẹṣin. Wow, fantastic. Gbádégẹṣin, that's a beautiful
Yeah.
name. Ṣé ó láwọn kan tó máa ń pè yín ní Gbádégẹṣin?
Èèyàn bíi mélòó kan láyé gbà láti pè mí Gbádégẹṣin torí ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ni ò mọ orúkọ yẹn mọ́ mi. Orúkọ táwọn èèyàn tún mọ̀ mọ́ mi ni Dámiláre. So ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ni ò mọ Gbádégẹṣin mọ́ mi lọ títí. Àmọ́ àwọn orúkọ Yorùbá mi náà nìyẹn. Àwọn míì tún wà tó ṣe pé kì í ṣe fún gbogbo etí.
Ó yé mi. Tí ń pẹ́ tí ẹ sọ ọ̀kan àbí méjì fún wa gan-an, mo ti ẹ̀ka fún nǹkan. Ẹ ṣeun. Ó dáa, so Olóòtú àgbà.
Àwọn tó mọ bàbá mi ti wà bíbá, àwọn tó mọ bàbá tó bí mi lọ́mọ ti wà.
Ẹ káàbọ̀, ẹ̀yin tẹ́ mọ̀ wá délédélé, ẹ káàbọ̀. Thank you very much for joining us. Báwo ni Olóòtú àgbà ṣe jẹ́? Báwo ni ẹ ṣe bẹ̀rẹ̀? Báwo ni ṣé orúkọ tẹ́ sọra nínú àbáwọn èèyàn lọ sọ yín bẹ́ẹ̀?
Orí òpó ìbánidọ́rẹ̀ẹ́ Twitter ló ti bẹ̀rẹ̀. This should be 2021 thereabouts, 2021-22. So gbà yẹn àwọn fọ́nrán mi ti máa fi sórí Twitter, wọ́n máa ń lọ dáadáa, wọ́n máa ń rìn dáadáa ń bẹ̀. Ìjọ kan lẹ́nìkan wá ní àpò orúkọ tí ẹ ká máa pe ọ̀bọ yìí ní Olóòtú àgbà, ó kọ́ ní comment section, àtìgbà yẹn mo dẹ̀ ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní mú Olóòtú àgbà morúkọ. So ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àtàwọn bá béèrè lọ́wọ́ mi pé àbọ̀ Olóòtú àgbà ṣe jẹ́ kó sí nǹkan kan bẹ̀ tó rẹpẹtẹ ju pé ẹnìkan pè bẹ́ẹ̀, èmi rẹ̀ wò pé kò sí tó burú bẹ́ẹ̀. Ìgbà yẹn tí mo fi bẹ̀rẹ̀ ni kó máa ń ṣe imitation àwọn radio stations, right? Báwọn radio presenter ṣe máa ń ṣe. Ibi tó Olóòtú àgbà gangan tẹ̀ ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ nìyẹn in the first place. Tí máa ti ń sọ̀rọ̀ tí mò ń ṣe ẹ̀yin tí mo ti dé lọ́sàn-án náà nìyẹn kí ní ọkùnrin mo fi máa kọ́ fi ṣàwádà ń tèmi, èmi ò tẹ̀ fi mú ìmú ní kankan tó yẹ pé bí mo mú ní ìbàdà àbí nǹkan kan, èmi kàn fi máa ṣàwádà fi ṣeré ń tèmi ni àti ọ̀rẹ́ pé ayé ń kó jẹ wọ́n tún kó jẹ sí i níbẹ̀ sí ní ìlú bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ. So ibi bí mo ṣe ń ṣe yẹn, bí mo ṣe ń ṣe bí ẹn pé Olóòtú lórí ètò lórí rédíò ló ń sọ̀rọ̀, òun ló jẹ́ kí wọ́n attribute yẹn sí Olóòtú àgbà tó fi wá di Olóòtú àgbà Lumee presenter tó yá yìí Jagunlabi tí ń para lè bẹ̀ ní parapọ̀.
Mo fẹ́ràn bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣe ń forúkọ yín jálẹ̀ yìí, ó dẹ̀ mo fẹ́ràn ẹ̀ lọ. Ṣùgbọ́n that is the thing I noticed about your style. When I listen to your content, it takes me back to listening to Radio Lagos in my childhood. It takes me back to OGPC. And so I wanted to ask, was that deliberate on your part, or how did that come about, that style in particular?
So, púpọ̀ ní nǹkan tí mo ń ṣe lónìí jẹ́ ẹni tó jẹ́ pé ó kàn wá ní wíwá àti ẹni, kì í ṣe pé bóyá mo dìídì sọ pé nǹkan báyìí ni mo fẹ́ bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní ṣe àbí báyìí mo fẹ́ bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní ṣe. Mo fi máa ń sọ pé fúnra mi pé ibi tí mò ń lọ gangan mi ò tí ì mọ̀. Ìgbésẹ̀ kéékèèké ni mo kàn ń gbé lọ́wọ́ yìí tí màá fi débi tí mò ń lọ. Ìgbà tí mo bẹ̀rẹ̀ láti máa ṣe fọ́nrán fi sórí àwọn òpó ìbánidọ́rẹ̀ẹ́ ní ọdún 2017 ni mo bẹ̀rẹ̀. Ìgbà mo bẹ̀rẹ̀ ńgbà náà mi tí màá bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní ṣe ń Yorùbá, mi náà ń gbìyànjú pé kíákẹ́ mi náà ṣe skit bí èmi náà gbàbẹ̀ blow tí ń fi gbàbẹ̀ là, all of that. So ó sì wá jẹ́ nǹkan tó yẹ pé mo kàn ń ṣe nígbà tí mo ṣì wà ní ilé ìwé ẹ̀kọ́ gíga. Mo kàn ń ṣe láwàdà ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀. Nígbà tá wá kúrò nílé ẹ̀kọ́ gíga tán, tá a ṣe tán tá a jáde, mo á wòra mo pé ṣé n tí mo máa fi ilé ayé mi ṣe lélẹ̀, ṣé mo ṣe máa bá lọ ilé iṣẹ́, mo ti ń ro ọ̀nà tí màá gbé gbà pé mo ní degree bẹ́ẹ̀ mo dẹ̀ ní skills ní media and all of that. How do I put this together to make more sense and to, give me a sense of purpose from it? Mo ṣáà bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní ro tí màá ṣe, mo bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní ro tí màá ṣe. Fast forward sí 2020, October 2020, ìgbà EndSARS ni mo wá fi fídíò kan ṣeré bí àwàdà. In tó ṣẹlẹ̀ ńgbà yẹn ni wọ́n gbé ọ̀pá àṣẹ ọba Ẹlẹ́gùṣì àbí nǹkan níbi àti bàtà hàn. So mo ṣe wá ríròyìn yẹn, èmi kàn fi ṣàwàdà pé ẹ wá wò tọ̀, ẹ wo ohun tó ṣẹlẹ̀ níbí o, ọ̀pá àṣẹ ọba náà ti gbé lọ kíní kan, mo ṣáà ṣe mo post ẹ̀ sórí WhatsApp láwàdà tèmi ni o. Wọ́n yàn ṣe bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní kí n post ẹ̀ sórí Instagram, kí n fi sórí Instagram, wọ́n máa kó jẹ́ ń bẹ̀ jájú síbẹ̀ o. Mo jù síbẹ̀ lálákọ̀ọ́kọ́, mo rí pé wọ́n kó jẹ díẹ̀. Ẹlẹ́ẹ̀kejì wọ́n tún kó jẹ. Now, what made me realize that, okay, there is something here was the comments. Àwọn comments mo máa ń rí tẹ́lẹ̀tẹ́lẹ̀. Ó yàtọ̀ sí irú comments mo bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní rí pẹ̀lú Yorùbá. The comments had more substance in it than when it's just laugh and this guy is not. So it felt like, okay, there's something here. And being a student of language and communication, it felt like, it came naturally. Mo bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní ṣe dáadáa, gbà tó yá mo kúrò lórí pé kí n kàn máa ṣe ní, mo bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní ṣe inú ọkọ̀ ìyá mi. Wẹ́rẹ́wẹ́rẹ́ mo ra wábì kan ní yàrá mi ńgbà náà, mo ra ṣe bí studio díẹ̀, mo ń ṣe sí. Within October yẹn tó fi wọ́ bí December, oríṣiríṣi nǹkan ti ṣẹlẹ̀, mo ti ṣe fídíò lóríṣiríṣi. kódà mo ti ríṣẹ́ ń bi ilé-iṣẹ́ rédíò kan nìbàdàn ṣùgbọ́n kò ṣiṣẹ́ tán wọ́n máa sanwó freelancing ni so gbogbo àyẹn wọ́n ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní bá mi sọ̀rọ̀ gbóyan oríṣiríṣi opportunities ti ń wà mo sọ pé okay kíní yìí ọjọ́ ọ̀la wà ń bẹ wájú wà ń bẹ mo ṣáà ń ṣe sí ma tó wá di December mo wá ṣe ọkàn ìyẹn kan blow gidi ni so ẹ̀kan tó wá blow yẹn ló wá ń push mi láti máa ṣe púpọ̀ ọ̀rọ̀ ẹ̀ sí mo ṣáà ń ṣe sí ma sọ kíní kan fáwọn èèyàn pé mi ò gbọ́ Yorùbá tààràtàrà Yorùbá tí mo máa ń sọ ìwọ̀nba Yorùbá tó jẹ́ pé kò sí ọmọ Yorùbá kan tí ò ní lè sọ ni nínú iṣẹ́ ìlú tí
Yorùbá tẹ̀mí ń sọ nìyẹn.
irú ẹ̀ náà lẹ́yìn náà sọ Yorùbá kan náà lájọ ń sọ.
Ṣùgbọ́n irọ́ ẹ̀yìn
táwọn bá bá mi tán ní Yorùbá ẹ̀ kẹrí.
ẹ máa bọ́rọ̀ yín lọ ẹ máa bọ́rọ̀ yín ẹ ṣe.
táwọn bá bá mi pé Yorùbá ẹ̀ ó kí gan ó ṣe kíní kan gidi gan wà ní ẹ máa tanra yín ẹnu iṣẹ́ yìí ẹnu bí mo ṣe ń ṣe fídíò bí mo ṣe ń ṣe fọ́nrán yìí ni mo ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ ń kọ́ a lot of things that I use in my videos. There are so many videos that I've used a proverb or two in them tó jẹ́ pé proverb yẹn òwe yẹn mi ò mọ̀ tẹ́lẹ̀tẹ́lẹ̀ nítorí fídíò yẹn mo wá àwọn òkè òwe ló bá mu láwọn òwe lọ́wọ́ tẹ́ pé lóríṣiríṣi òwe ló bá mu màá lò máa fi sí mo tó wá fẹ́ di pé wọ́n fẹ́ wá sọ mí di ìjìnlẹ̀ bàbá Yorùbá wọ́n pé ẹ̀yin ìwé ẹ máa ní sùúrù fún mi ẹ ti ń mú mi máa sáré ju àsìkò mi lọ mo ṣáà ń ṣe ogbẹ tó fi wá di àsìkò yìí. Between when I started and now, I would say that I have evolved beyond somebody who does it for fun to somebody who does it as a semi-authority in the Yoruba and media space, communication and media space. Yeah.
Actually, that brings me to mo fẹ́ kọ́kọ́ kí gbogbo àwọn tó ń darapọ̀ mọ́ wa. And I also want to say something quickly. This program is going to be delivered in both English and Yoruba, just for humanity's sake, and also so that we don't leave anybody behind. We have lots of people interested in Yoruba content who are not necessarily fluent Yoruba speakers, and so they might not understand everything, but please feel free to dabble, come in, come out as you wish. Olootu agba. Mo bá ṣe òyìn tó bá dẹ̀ jẹ́ Yorùbá nìkan náà lẹ́fẹ̀ẹ́ sọ ẹ má jẹ́ ká crown style yín rárá ṣùgbọ́n èmi á máa lọ nínú Yorùbá.
Bí ṣe máa ń sọ kinní kan pé it might sound some type of way to some persons, right? But I always say that wọ́n ti bí wa náà. Àwọn system tó dẹ̀ bí wa sí, ìgbà míì kò sí ní ta fẹ́ ṣe sí. I grew up in a system where I spoke English most of my life. I mean, I didn't start communicating Yoruba in the house with my parents until senior secondary school year 1. Látó bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní sọ Yorùbá rárá nínú ilé wa. Mo sì mi kọ́ ló máa ń sọ Yorùbá, bó sì mi máa ń dúró lórí pé òyìnbó yẹn gbọ́dọ̀ ṣe kíní kan. Àdúgbò tá a tún gbé jádùúgbò tó yẹ pé òyìnbó ni bí ọ̀pẹ rẹ̀. Our neighbors just right in front of us, next to us, they are professors, That was kind of environment I grew up in. So màá tí mo bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní ṣe fídíò táwọn àwọn parents mi gan fúnra wọn pé àgbà ó ló gbọ́ Yorùbá tó kí tó báyìí. Àwọn ọ̀rẹ́ fọ́sí mi àbí pé àgbà ó ní Michael wá gbọ́ Yorùbá tó dáa tó báyìí kíní kan. Èmi ò gbọ́ Yorùbá mo kàn ṣe tèmi ni. And it feels like whether I like it or not, it's a movement more than just a guy who creates content on social media. So a lot of times, I feel like mo feel depressed, I feel some type of way because of the other creators that are doing beautifully well, right? Outside of the niche, around the niche, completely outside the niche, and brands are calling them, they are getting gigs. I usually feel bad sometimes, but I'm not iṣẹ́ tí mò ń ṣe yàtọ̀ sí iṣẹ́ tí ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ èèyàn ń ṣe, and as such the direction tí iṣẹ́ mi á gbà ó ṣeé ṣe kó yàtọ̀ sí bí tọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ṣe ń lọ.
And honestly, that is why I've created this series, because gbogbo iṣẹ́ tá à ń ṣe ní ibi tààrùn pé iṣẹ́ kéékèèké, I just want to bring it together, give people a voice and actually delve into their motivations. Kí ni ìdí tí a fi ń ṣe kí ni lórí gbà mí ibẹ̀ ṣe ń sọ èmi náà máa ń bèèrè mi pé kí ló ṣe ta ló rán mi iṣẹ́ kí ni mò ń
kí ló tì mí débi gbogbo ilé
ìgbà. And that's going to take me to my next question. It's a cheeky question I have for you, and I'm going to ask every guest on this series this. What was your WAEC results in Yoruba?
My WAEC results in Yoruba? I think I had
What did you have?
Mo ṣe NECO àti WAEC mi mo ní bímbẹ NECO mi ní sí. So ní ilé ìwé ẹ̀kọ́ gíga mo wà lára àwọn tó yẹ kó máa sọ pé best in Yoruba, Michael, cause mo rántí dáadáa for some interesting reasons my Yoruba teachers were particularly somehow just interested in me. Tó fi jẹ́ pé ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ gbà bí mi ò tiẹ̀ mọ̀ kà wọ́n á fún mi ìwé Yorùbá ní kíláàsì máa kà á. Èmi tẹ́ pé writing mi ò fi bẹ́ẹ̀ dá wọ́n á pè mí kí n wá kọ Yorùbá sẹ́ni. Ìgbà yẹn ṣe mọ̀ school náà ni kò dàbí pé bóyá nǹkan kan wà tó pàtàkì lẹ́yìn ẹ̀ ju pé èmi kan máa ń ṣe. Mo dẹ̀ máa ń gbádùn ẹ̀ tí máa ń ṣe. So it was very interesting when the results came out and it was B1 kí náà ti ń pè B2. Èyí ṣé wàá kí mo gba sí ń bẹ̀.
That's fantastic. Well done,
But
because
I still saw the results today. I still saw the results today because I was cleaning some parts of my place and I saw the results. Yes.
Oh, anything gbìyànjú láti lẹ́yìn, you're an exception, because there are lots of even professors I interact with, and myself, I earned a C5 in Yoruba WAEC. So mo máa ń fẹ́ káwọn èèyàn mọ̀, and some of my professors the same, they have a C6 or a C4, like they were not Yoruba authorities. Nítorí mo máa ń fẹ́ káwọn èèyàn mọ̀ pé on this path, you learn as you go. You don't come.
You really learn as you go, and like your journey is your journey. Our journeys are different.
But it is always a journey of growth. I would like to, when I started to write my book, Moyatika, in my first book, it was my cousin and my illustrator who did their meal for me because he was quite much better at it. Bóyá ẹ̀wọ̀n ló ń gbà ní Yorùbá. Ṣùgbọ́n nísìn mi ò lè. Ọmọ ayà mi lẹ́nu pé ṣé èmi ni mi ò mọ àmì ohùn barely 5-6 years ago, because now I speak and write it extremely fluently. I teach people, and in a way it almost me as feeling pé kíní tí mo mọ̀ yìí ní bí ọdún mẹ́fà sẹ́yìn. Mo mọ̀ dáadáa sì débi pé mo lè ó ní ọ̀nà tí mo máa fi kọ́ ẹ tó máa yé ẹ. And I think that's why I want everybody to, the way I want everybody to approach it, particularly parents. That's my own niche. I try to get parents to pass Yoruba and other languages down to their children. And I say, see, even if you feel in pain, boy, more to 10%, 10% step in money.
10% is money.
So 10% yẹn tẹ́ bá tiẹ̀ lè gbé 2% nínú ẹ̀ka lẹ̀kọ́ ọmọ yẹn. Ó ṣàǹfààní fún you care, touch you 10%. And then in that 10%, as you start teaching your children, you start to know more, you start to find out more. They come to you. My daughter will come to me and say, Kini astronaut in Yoruba, Kini dinosaur in Yoruba, wa te Google, wa be ìwé ìtumọ̀ jáde. You start thinking about ways of solving these problems. And I think that's helped me a lot. So I think many people don't know the benefits of just engaging with the language and trying to meet it at their level, because always it's a journey of growth and a journey of discovery. So, Mawa Binyini Ibere, what is the insight you would say you have gained from engaging with Yoruba, or rather, when was your cultural awakening? Was there a moment when you back on by Yorùbá yìí máa jẹ́ nǹkan tí ẹ rò tẹ́lẹ̀? Mo mọ̀ pé ti sọ díẹ̀ nípa ìgbà tẹ́ wà lórí Twitter tí ẹ ṣe fọ́nrán Yorùbá yẹn. Tẹ́ wá rí pé báwọn èèyàn ṣe ń fèsì sí ó yàtọ̀ sí èsì tó máa ń fi sí nǹkan tẹ́ bá gbé jáde ní Gẹ̀ẹ́sì. Ṣùgbọ́n was there another one or a more significant moment?
So I would say that I get there's no like significant one-time cannonball moment, right? But I get a feeling of it every time that I express in Yoruba language, right? Tí n bá wọ studio tí mo fẹ́ ṣiṣẹ́ ń gbà mí, bí màá ṣe sọ̀rọ̀ yẹn mi ò tí mọ̀. Ọ̀pọ̀ ìgbà mo ti ní script mi sílẹ̀, mo ti ní angle mi sílẹ̀, ìgbà mi gan òyìnbó mo fi kọ script yẹn. But bí màá ṣe àgbékalẹ̀ Yorùbá tó jẹ́ pé kò ní dàbí pé Yorùbá yẹn lọ, kò ní dàbí pé Yorùbá yẹn bẹ́ẹ̀ pé èèyàn kọ sílẹ̀ kí èèyàn tó máa sọ, á dàbí communicate like we're just communicating, right? It feels like, simple, but at the same time sounds poetic, it sounds rich. So mo realize pé at the end of the day, our identity is largely tied to our language and culture. Because when I express certain things in Yoruba, it's different from how I would express it in English. The way you would consume that thing, ó yàtọ̀ sí tó bá jẹ́ pé òyìnbó ni mo fi ṣe àgbékalẹ̀. So mo ṣe wá ń ṣe sí mo wá rí pé ibì kan wà tó ṣe tó so èèyàn mọ́bi téèyàn ti wá àti èdè ibi tá a bí èèyàn sí. And from that I felt like there is so much more to who we are vis-a-vis culture and language than we can ever think of, right?
Or even
I'll say to a
express.
very large extent that àti sọ ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ nǹkan nù.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ni,
Ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ nǹkan ló ti bàjẹ́.
bẹ́ẹ̀ni,
Ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ nǹkan ni ò ṣe é túnṣe mọ́.
bẹ́ẹ̀ni.
Ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ nǹkan ló yẹ pé kò sọgbọ́n tá a fẹ́ dá, a kàn máa rojọ́ dọ̀la ni. And
Ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀
the more tá a bá ṣe ń rojọ́ lórí ẹ̀, the more we are imposing our own self and our thoughts into culture. So for me, it now became a thing where I don't care what anyone has to say about the culture. I don't care how anyone sees the culture. Culture would always progress, it would always build itself, and it would always grow. So for
And
me,
it
it has now
will
been a thing.
always attract other parts as well. It doesn't
Yes,
exist or evolve
it
in
doesn't necessarily have
isolation.
to be a but
So that peering view, the running.
exactly. So
Òun
for
ló
me,
lè
it has always
padà
now
sẹ́yìn
been
lọ
okay.
máa mọ nǹkan tá a ti sọ nìyẹn, a lè máa gbìyànjú láti máa fi làákàyè gbé òun pé bóyá báyìí ni ṣùgbọ́n no one can say definitively it was like
Nobody
that and
wants
ought to be
exactly.
like that till now. That's culture.
So I've always been for how do we progress as a people, right? And less of who were we. Because if you look at who we were very well, we come up Parotonrawa, right? And it's why I like the works of everybody who's popping up now doing Yoruba content, doing something Yoruba space. Because into my share, gbogbo bọ́n ṣe ń ṣe tẹ́lẹ̀tẹ́lẹ̀ yẹn, quite alright, sweet, fantastic. But reality ilé ayé tá à ń gbé sìn yìí, ó yàtọ̀ sí ti tẹ́lẹ̀tẹ́lẹ̀. Now, how do we apply our culture, our language, our self, our identity in the modern day, which is like one of the DNA of my work, which is Yoruba culture and modern media, Yoruba culture and modern lifestyle, Yoruba culture and modern relatability, and all of those things. So intersection where ẹ̀sìn kan ìṣẹ̀ṣe, ẹ̀sìn kan kìnnìkan. For example, myself, right, born a Christian, born of Christian beliefs, right? I grew up in those things. Now, my life has gotten to a point where into kan ló kàn. Into kan is mo fẹ́ lówó lọ́wọ́, mo fẹ́ dọlọ́lá, màá bímọ, màá níyàwó nílé. There is a whole journey to the reality of life that's in front of me. Dan pé mo ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ fẹ́ máa wá pé ìṣẹ̀ṣe mo fẹ́ máa ṣe báyìí, ẹ̀sìn báyìí mo fẹ́ máa yà sí báyìí. Ìtí mo ti dì. How do we move on from here? As my main focus. I would see conversations about how issues not Satan. This is not that. Quite all right. Yes. Now, can we move on from that? Let's see where this whole thing. Let's see where it takes us beyond just arguments and conversations and back and forth as to Boshieko Walile, Atiri Bashiri, right? As a Yoruba person, how do you move on? I make contents, praying in Yoruba language, and I never put the name Jesus in it. Not because I don't believe in the name of Jesus or the power of the name of Jesus or all of those things, but because I realize that the more important thing is being able to express yourself in that mother language, mother tongue, rather than our beliefs and all of this. Yes, they are there. They are going to be there. They will always be there. But that's left for you as an individual. Okay, báyìí ni mo fẹ́ ṣe. Báwo ni kí ló ti ń pè ìgbésí ayé ìtàn ayé báwo ló ṣe ń lọ? Now, how do you progress from that? As a Yoruba person, this is who I am, this is what I am, this is the space where I function. Now, that's where we can now start thinking Yoruba for tech. Yoruba because now we are moving at the pace of gbogbo ayé ṣe ń yí. Kì í ṣọ̀rọ̀ pé kìíní nìkan. For example, mo ní program kan tí mo ṣe pẹ̀lú àwọn ọmọ students licity, àwọn ọmọ ilé ẹ̀kọ́ gíga ti licity tó yẹ pé intern ṣe ò kọjá pé ṣé Yorùbá ni ẹ́, ṣé Igbo ni ẹ́, ṣé Ibibio ni ẹ́. How do we create safe media, right? Expressing in our own mother tongue, in our own different languages. So that's the basics of what I do. Language, culture, and modern media.
Bringing it to modernity. And I think a lot of time that's what everyone is trying to do in this space. It's almost as you ring I'm a song calling come as
it's a silent awakening. It's a response to a silent awakening, yes.
And it's not even silent anymore, it's sort of graduating a lot of effect right now. And particularly we're in a fast-paced world with digital technology, and we are savvy Yoruba people, and so we will of course try to put imprints on all of these other ways in which we already communicate now. But there's a place again for nostalgia and bí irú àpẹẹrẹ àdúrà tẹ́ ẹ sọ fún mi nsìn ń pé ẹ máa ń ṣe àdúrà The man being must be Jesus, not because you don't you don't find Jesus relatable or you're against Christianity, but just because you're keeping it Yoruba. And so for me now, even though I grew up in a mixed religious background, my dad was Alhaji twice over, my mom has always been Catholic and remains so. I now choose to use certain words, like I will rarely say God or say Boya Oluwa. Even though that's the prefix of my name.
My
I'd
name,
rather say Olódùmarè. I would rather pray in Yoruba because prayer in Yoruba hits different for me. Since I
Honestly
was a
speaking, it
child,
hits
my
different every single
my
time.
dad
It hits
my dad
different.
was Muslim, but every time he would piggyback his prayers with a Yoruba Ọba Rínúróde Olùmọ̀ràn kan létí Gbáròyè. And there was just a thing for me about prayers in Yoruba. And that is again why you resonate, I think, with so many people because it fills that gap that they don't even know is there.
Yes, it takes away the other attachment to our identity and makes us just Yoruba in that moment.
Yes. And I think there's a space for that as well. While we're, sort of rushing headlong into the digital world, there's a place for bringing it back home. Yes, we've lost some things, but what have we not lost and what can we bring back?
Yeah,
And I
what
think that's
can
that
we lose?
intersection that you straddle very well. But how does it land with your obviously younger demographic audience and listenership and followers? How do you balance it? Not alienating the people that are evolving towards like spirituality, not bringing the Christians along and even the agnostics, the ones that want what is all of this about.
Shemo, over the years, right? We're in the world is really vast. It goes beyond what we know based on our immediate environment. And there's a lot going on. There are so many people in the world with different beliefs, right? And if you're not going to make it look like, oh, this guy is just for some people, you have to create such that your focus is on what lands at the end of the day. And for me, what has always been important to land at the end of the day is any Yoruba person or non-Yoruba person can enjoy my content. Regardless, kó jẹ́ pé Yorùbá ni mo fi sọ̀rọ̀ láti beginning content tó fi dé ìparí content yẹn. Let it be such that anybody in the world at all can follow, right? It is in that they are now able to attribute certain positive things, right, to the culture. If an Igbo guy, I've had, let me not say if, right? I've had a number of people don't interact with the content me consistently tí wọ́n ṣe Yorùbá rárá. I have friends who have made on social media tí ò ń ṣe Yorùbá tó yẹ pé torí content mi la fi di pé abẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní sọ̀rọ̀ tàbí tá a dọ̀rẹ́ àbẹ̀nítì. And àwọn kan tó máa ń ṣe yẹn ni the look of the video, the feel, and then there's the sound that's good as well. I mean, I'm trying my best to make sure it's good as well. And then there is now the place of subtitling.
And well, any
So
feedback on, I'm just going to interrupt that thought.
yeah.
I have feedback on your subtitling. Sherry, me. Subtitling,
I
you
know
come
where you're
out
going
with the
to.
king car. Ṣùgbọ́n mi ò
Hey,
rí ká. Kí ló ṣe ẹ̀ mọ́ pàwá kan ojú tí ń lọ padà lọ sọ́dọ̀ olójú ni? Báwo lẹ ṣe máa ràn wá lọ́wọ́? Because it's
Sherry.
interesting, I want to hear you and read how you've interpreted that in Yoruba, translated that into English when, I hear you. Kí ló dé tẹ́ ó jẹ́, oh yeah, you tell me why you made that stylistic choice.
Okay, so we can never put aside the place of how things work and function. Social media is now such that everybody on social media now is literally overstimulated. We are all fighting for attention.
Yeah.
And if you don't, I mean, a good number of videos that I've done that were supposed to actually be good are flopped. And they flopped because my chance of holding the listener in the first 3 seconds, keep them watching in the next 5 seconds, have them remaining in the next 10 seconds, all the way till the end of the video, 60 seconds. It's a lot of work. And I can't, because of the satisfaction of people that would consume Farabale read. Because at the end of the day, if my numbers are not doing well, you stop seeing my content. if my numbers are not as good, ẹ kàn máa kàn rí díẹ̀ látọ̀dọ̀ yín jọ̀kan pé olóòtú àgbàṣe wa okay mi rí fídíò yín láti jọ ẹ̀. It's not because I'm not making videos, because number yẹn ti tag. Ẹ máa rí pé àwọn tó ń béèrè pé wọ́n máa kọ sọ̀tà sí yẹn ní Yorùbá, ẹ bá mi kọ́kọ́ slow. When you look at that percentage compared to those that don't mind it is very low. Tí máa torí ti èèyàn kan tàbí méjì tàbí mẹ́ta nínú
Yorubamama, ó yẹ ṣe kan fún mi, ṣe kan fún mi.
ṣe rí ìtí màá sọ ni pé mo fẹ́ bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní ṣe YouTube láìpẹ́. Yeah, it will be slow paced and all of that. It's for consumption, it's not fast paced consumption. But as long as Instagram, TikTok,
your message to
and
the
these ones, yes. So it's important that I do it. I do my work such that it actually flows on how the algorithm functions and how the users actually interact with the apps. So,
and that is a good understanding of obviously your medium. What's your background in that? The back end of, say, broadcasting of social media. Yeah. How did that begin? How did you start up on that?
Okay, we're not going to go into the details from way before. We're just going to start from my diploma. I had a diploma degree, 2 years in mass communication, right? And in those times, it wasn't just the degree itself. It wasn't just school. I had 2 different times where initially it was for the school. There's this thing called internship, right? We did that. And then after the internship, I had a year of volunteering at a media house. So ibẹ̀ ní background gbogbo èmi ní camera, mo ń lo ṣe kíní, mo ń ṣe gbá, mo ń ṣàwò, mo náà lò, mo mọ camera ń lò, mo mọ ṣe ń set and all of that. Ibẹ̀ ní gbogbo foundation yẹn ti wá. Then the communication aspect of it was from there as well. And then university level, I studied languages. I studied German. So that in itself also has had a contribution to my work over the years, because tábà wo tí mo lọ ṣe ní ilé ẹ̀kọ́ gàgàgàgà, German Imoloshi, right? European Studies, German major. And it is very interesting at the end of the day, I'm now creating content in Yoruba. And the reason why I would say I'm able to do it the way I do it now is because of my training in, understanding language and use of language. And then the training, the media background. So in community to support those to be iṣẹ́ mi lárugẹ gangan, yeah.
And it's a good background, Servant. And the wrong way, because again, similarly to you, I studied mass communication in the university, but what I did want to study was English language, because there's a certain call that the languages and culture and arts have for certain people that even though it seems like English Yoruba, German Yoruba, it is the same source. You can just channel it in different ways. Your love of expression, your love of metaphorical language, your love of how things are different from different viewpoints, language viewpoints. All of that is the same.
Yes.
That you can turn it from one language to another, basically, and that is what I believe I've done, because a boss of mine, Next Newspaper. I don't know if you know Next Newspaper. It was quite a while ago. My boss, Malara Wood, said, the way I was as a young journalist, I was an arts and culture journalist. Again, I was interested in arts, I was interested in culture, but the way I was, she used to say, I was so English that when it toba sofa money Shola ilo mawa pada the Yorubamama pé. So one day, hopefully, I'll bring that onto this series. But I'm now finding that it's actually not surprising. Not surprising that these things you can just channel them in different directions. And I want you to speak a bit more nípa ìmọ̀ German àti ìmọ̀ Yoruba. Báwo ló ṣe wá pọ̀? Because if we're even thinking about 2 languages that couldn't be more different to the ear, English gan fẹ́ ní ó fẹ́ súnmọ́ Yoruba ju German lọ. Where Yoruba is soft and melodious and uses the tones and flows like music, German is hard, guttural, and all of that. How do those experiences with these 2 languages, how do they differ? And
for someone who actually studied German and can speak German, right? I would even say that, interestingly, German sounds more relatable to the Yoruba language than English would ever sound.
Yes, of course.
Because yes, um, let me take a word for example, right? Eheman, right, is spelled Ehemann, right? There's a way when you
Yeah.
pronounce
What's
certain
the word
German
itself?
words.
Kini money.
A Heyman, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's I think a Heyman is your spouse or something like that in German.
Okay.
The meaning is not even the modern thing. Is how you pronounce certain things when you're speaking German, right? And then when you come to Yoruba, for me, personally, and I would say that to a good number of us that studied German, we found some things in the German what's it called, lexicon that actually sounds similar to that of the Yorubas. And for us, it was always interesting. But that's not even the point. The point here is that the melody that exists in Yoruba language exists in German as well. For example, you would hear a German audio that sounds Ich habe einen Dutzend heute, aber meine it sounds like that. And then when you look at Yoruba, so you can actually make Yoruba sound like that. Ngbà mo ń bọ̀ ńbẹ̀, tí mo dé tán, mo mú nǹkan kan jáde, mo tún mú lọ. Aber gestern ich war in Deutschland und gestern war ich in blah 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 like that, So then I remember then when we were doing what's it called, listening and speaking, it was always that sound, especially the male voiceovers, that attracted me the most. It was less of even what they were saying and more of how it sounded. Because for me, it sounded like there was something to their language too that existed for the Yoruba language. And the Yoruba thing, kì í ṣe pé bóyá torí pé mo ṣe German ó wá influence Yoruba àbí nídàkejì. Yorùbá yẹn ti wà ń bẹ̀ tipẹ́tipẹ́ láti kékeré. Mo jẹ́ nǹkan tó yẹ pé mo máa ń gbádùn kí n máa gbọ́ rédíò nígbà tí mo kéré dáadáa. Máa ń gbọ́ rédíò gan.
Mm-hmm.
Màá fẹ́ sọ pé rédíò yẹn gangan, my exposure to media was actually what exposed me to Yoruba language. Àwọn rédíò program alálẹ́ tó máa ń ṣe ìmí gan dọ̀la mi mọ orúkọ program yẹn. I just want to listen. I just want to listen because of how they sound. Tó àtúnṣe lónìí náà nìyẹn o. Lọ́rọ̀ bá mi Èdùmàrè mọ̀mọ́ fi wá sílẹ̀ ká bẹ̀rẹ̀ ń tá bẹ̀rẹ̀ ká sì parí rẹ̀ pápápá. There was a way it sounded. There was a way the use of voice. That the it wasn't just speaking. It was communicating. You're trying to use the sweetest part of that language to attract people to listen. And by doing that, right? I mean, it's a place of voiceovers.
All of that.
So multi-core voiceover, not at some point, I'm a voiceover artist. So that also like contributes to it. So when I'm speaking Yoruba, I'm not speaking Yoruba as I mean I could speak Yoruba like that, my normal voice. But if I'm going to do it in media, right, it's going to be a level up, right? And so it was actually, being able to now express in Yoruba vis-a-vis learning German was not because of okay, so I will not say that my Yoruba got enhanced because I was learning another language at some point. So it made me understand certain properties of language, how you. I remember very well, only word contact in German class, Österreich, which is the German for Austria, right? It was Österreich to pronounce, right? Interestingly, many of us who were Yoruba would say something like Österreich. There's an H in front of it, right? It was because I learned German that I realized that because we are Yoruba, our chances of aspirating words are very high,
Yes.
which is what everybody is, calling
H
H factor,
factor.
H factor, are very high. But because I was not particularly like learning, I was one of like the good students in class. So I was very concerned about how my German would speak would sound when I speak in it, right? I became very conscious of the properties of your language that you not even realize would affect you when you speak other languages. And then I became conscious of how your background in English or the fact that you speak more English can actually affect how you would pronounce Yoruba words, even when you sound to others like you're speaking it right.
Then.
So, you find people speaking Yoruba like, but mo date mo de wa ti mo lo, honestly, Shemo, ti mo she de yen, you find that is largely influenced by number one is, probably another language or trying forcibly to sound like something that you're not. That many
That's
people
an
do.
example. So
Mm.
nígbà tí mo bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ń kọ́ ọmọ mi, ètò kéré zin, mo kọ́ láti bí n ṣe bí báyìí bó ṣe jáde ni mo ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ń kọ́ ní Yorùbá. Mo dẹ̀ kọ́ ní Yorùbá yẹn fún bí ọdún mẹ́ta before she then went into school. and her tonality was sound. But immediately she went into school, proper school. Listen, Mama, I'm constantly correcting the intonation because English, as
It's the
more,
language of the environment you are in.
yeah, and it's the language of the environment. So you can't really isolate that Yoruba from English. So she'll say something and then, oh, she's so big, Gessi, so big Yoruba. And I think she's going to receive, and she already does when people tease her and say, on so Yoruba, yeah, Gessi, even though she speaks Yoruba very well, but Gessi, so because, but the thing is, if I had not spent the first 3 years with her, I'd have almost thought that she had always spoken it like this. But no, I remember, and I made lots of videos as well of the time when she spoke it very well. But that's cultural immersion into English in every space then did affect the Yoruba. So that makes your point, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I mean, again, I would say that while there's nothing so supernatural about what I do, I would also say that to a large extent is what I do right now is not as a result of, I want to do Yoruba content. It's as a result of what I have grown into, exposed myself to, right? Absorbed, learned over the years. And then I'm able to put together because it came a point in what I'm doing where I felt like, I had other jobs I was doing, but I felt like I really wanted to focus on this, right? And at that point where I said I wanted to focus on this, ó wá kúrò ní pé mo kàn ń ṣe fún ẹ̀fẹ̀. Kí ni àwọn skills tí mo ní, tí mo kó papọ̀, tí mo lè fi ṣe kíni kó fi dà. Òun ló bí nǹkan tí gbogbo wa ń rí lónìí. Mo máa ń sọ pé táyé bá gbà mí láàrin bóyá ọdún yìí sọdún tó ń bọ̀ tí n bá rí owó kan kìí tó wọlé sí mi lọ́wọ́, mo fẹ́ lọ kọ́ ẹ̀kọ́ sí. I take my master's in language and media. So ṣe mọ̀, mo rí pé kò sí bí èèyàn ṣe fẹ́ ṣe téèyàn bá dé àwọn abala kan. You would definitely, except like you're not conscious about what you're doing, you feel the need to increase your knowledge, like to increase your knowledge base and then close a gap. Because I believe that right now, there is still a gap. Ibi tí mo mọ̀ ọ́ dé ni mo mọ̀ ọ́ mọ̀. Ọ̀nà ṣì wà tó jìn láti lọ. Tó jẹ́ pé èèyàn ò lè rin ìrìn àjò yẹn téèyàn ò bá fi kún nǹkan tó wà nílẹ̀ lọ́wọ́ báyìí. That's like the phase where currently I am. I'm trying to like transition through.
Although, what do you say when people say, oh, something like, well, obviously you're not going to be learning Yoruba, particularly media and language, did you say? But we're common, the learning is in the doing on a certain level. And that holds true particularly for Yoruba because, again, Loto, it can be learned on some level. However, it's almost constant everyday immersion, everyday doing. So, does learning in isolation of that not take away from potentially on the job or on the job training version?
So, if I get the question well, right? How have I been growing even in like as I work, right?
So you've been growing as you work, but now you want to sort of grow through education, right? And I want to believe that, because again, right? So that means you're going to be dialing back on some of the things that maybe you do currently do to gain more knowledge in other spheres, right? So
it's already happening. Mo kàn fi ọgbọ́n ṣe náà ni. And ọgbọ́n ọbẹ̀ náà ni pé kó ṣeé ṣe kó jẹ́ pé ibikíbi tí máa wà, ibikíbi tí ó bá ká mi mọ́, mo lè wá àyè àti máa ṣe fọ́nrán mi lọ bí mo ṣe ń ṣe. Ó kàn lè jẹ́ pé àwọn èèyàn kan rí pé àwọ̀ ẹ̀ ti change ibi tó wà. But àyè ṣì gbà mí, kò síbi tí máa wà nílé ayé yìí. Mo lọ́rẹ̀ẹ́ kan tó máa sọ pé your content is going to be timeless. Tí n bá fẹ́yàwó tán tí mo bímọ, màá rí pé àwọn nǹkan tí màá máa sọ nínú àwọn fọ́nrán mi á tún yàtọ̀. Tí n bá tún dé àwọn ìpele kan again á tún yàtọ̀. I've done my content such that it is not relying on my ability to speak about my knowledge of Yoruba to continue to exist. It relies on relatability. It relies on whatever it is I have to express. So the going to learn stuff is because I know that there is more to what I do than how I'm currently doing it. And less of doing it just so that, oh, because I want it to blow, I want it to like, it will continue to grow in its own, on its own accord, in its own. I mean, someone was saying somewhere about nexus of formal
Yeah,
versus
that's all.
informal learning. You would not realize it. Like, you might not even see the connection. Except like you particularly look at, okay, I want to look into this to see connection. Because like studying diploma in mass communication and then studying German, no one would have ever said that I'll be making content as a Yoruba person. And I said something earlier, ibi tá à ń lọ sí jìnnà tó yẹ pé a mọ̀ ṣùgbọ́n ìrìn àjò kéékèèké la máa ìgbésẹ̀ la máa gbé láti tún wa débi tó nítumọ̀ níbi ìrìn àjò ibi tá à ń lọ. So for me, the formal learning is going to serve the function of how has it been done before? How can you do this better? How can you do this such that anybody who looks into your work can already tell that this person is quite kì í ṣe rí kò sí bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn ṣe fẹ́ gbọ́n a lè gbọ́n tán. There's no there, bẹ́ẹ̀ni and ilé ayé tàdé ń wò yìí kò dúró lójú kan. Ẹni tẹ́ ẹ mọ̀ lánàá tẹ́ bá pàdé ẹ lénìí nǹkan tó mọ̀ lánàá ti lè yàtọ̀ lónìí. So the people that I'm giving this same content I've been giving so far to, it gets to a point where they in their own personal spaces, you as a person, you've evolved from who I was when you knew me. I mean, who you were when you knew me. There are certain things that if I continue to do them the way I've been doing them all of this time, I'm quite sure that it has already bored some people. And then they want to see more to the brand. So the brand goes beyond mo ń ṣe fọ́nrán lórí Instagram, mo ń ṣe lórí TikTok. There are impacts that the brand should be able to make beyond this social media space.
Yeah.
There are doors, there are things we're supposed to try beyond this space. And I'm not going to deceive you. You might think you know these things, but you won't know until you've allowed yourself absorbed more from places like external but relatable to what you are doing. It is that are not able to
Evolution is constant. Just
yeah. Mo láwọn òwe Yorùbá lóríṣiríṣi tẹ́ pé mò ń kà from time I come mú kàn máa kà. From it, I learn new things. I adapt them into what I do. But I know that is not enough at the end of the day. There's even a point where I wanted to go and do business administration because of the business side of things. I'm quite sure that tí n bá ṣe course yẹn bóyá a year or two tí mo dé, ìṣọwọ́ ṣiṣẹ́ mi á yàtọ̀ sí tẹ́lẹ̀tẹ́lẹ̀. Tó dẹ̀ jẹ́ pé kò sí bí mo ṣe fẹ́ ní mo fẹ́ learn on the job kí n máa ṣe báyìí lọ, mo lè má lè débẹ̀ yẹn.
Because even I have constantly sought more learning, right? I've done this, I've done the masters, now I want to do a PhD. Okay, I want to tailor it to what I'm doing now, which is
life becomes more fun when you live it like that. I'm not going to to take my masters because I don't have something to do or ẹ̀rù pé tí màá ṣe masters.
Something to do, yeah, ni mo máa ń rò pé something to do. Why iṣẹ́ pọ̀ rẹpẹtẹ téèyàn lè ṣe.
Iṣẹ́ pọ̀ téèyàn lè ṣe, but at the end of the day, it's just okay. Yes, I'm actually want to do this because of bettering myself, and I don't mind it. I'm going to do it. So if not, why not? If I can afford to do it, if I have the room to do these things, I mean, I would explore it. So definitely, ti rí àyè báyìí fiam.
Ṣe bí n ṣe ṣe lẹ́dùnmarè àwọn pẹ̀lú ẹ tún ṣe jù yẹn lọ lágbára lẹ́dùnmarè. Let me see, what else do I have? Okay, so what is the most surprising feedback you've received on your work?
I mean, I won't exactly say that.
Or maybe insightful, anything that stands out.
Feedback, right? One that always puzzles me is when people capitalize on, say, the less important things, right? To focus on certain errors that don't actually. I'm usually not able to wrap my head around it. For example, there's a particular video that I sharing back on about Yoruba proverbs, and it was supposed to be fun. And anybody who comes in contact with this should know that, this is going to be fun. People do it every day, every now and then. if you go back in time, go back to Baba Suwe movies, he does Yoruba proverbs such that it feels like he's not changing the proverb. What he does is he does such that it becomes more relatable to the person of that time watching. You realize that many of our proverbs are, I'm not saying going to say stale, but like they are for a time
A
that's
time, they're
not
trapped in a
this.
time.
Yeah, they're for a time. And so somebody on Twitter at some point had now made a list of proverbs that are relatable. Pé, hey, Kimani Kinoti, and we actually are funny, but they are based off of proverbs that already existed. Ile Oba Tojo, for example, fire extinguisher ni ò sí ńbẹ̀. It is more relatable for someone today when you hear that Ile Oba Tojo. Fire.
Ben,
Now it's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be the kind of proverb that we're not going to like teach next generation. But it would interest you that rather than people watch that and move on and laugh, they will now start to fight you such that they come to your DMs to curse at you for destroying the culture and heritage. And I realize that this person has done absolutely nothing
nothing for the language.
for the
Nothing
furtherance of
for
the language or culture.
Mhm.
So it's always really, really weird
But
and at the
still,
same time such a funny thing. As regards feedback, I would say that my brand has been such that I've barely had anything negative associated with the brand, more of positives. And the best part will still always be the prayers. How in my space, I just make a video praying about certain things. People find them relatable, and now they are sending me, what's it called in churches again? Um, Kini testimony, Akilamagu testimony in church now.
no. I-
Eh?
ẹni tó bá mọ̀ kó bá wa kọ́ sí. Láàrin mi sí wa.
Kí làwọn máa ń give testimony ṣá?
Mhm.
Ló wá di pé à ń bọ́ sínú
Ẹ̀rí
DM mi.
ẹ̀rí la lè pè, a lè pè ẹ̀rí is proof.
Ẹ̀rí pé
Something like that.
nǹkan báyìí báyìí àdúrà yín báyìí 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 ló ti nà ládùúrà tèmi náà because like it's just I'm just doing this for the language. I'm just saying, oh,
Mhm.
let's do this for the furtherance of culture and language, and it actually is touching lives, and that for me is the most important part. There's also the Yoruba names and how people are now saying that, oh, I don't have to name my child Jason or Jaden, the actual Yoruba names. So for
Mhm.
me, it's more of, oh, this thing tí mò ń ṣe níbi níṣe pé ò mò ń ṣe
Nkọ̀rọ̀
is now
yàrá.
becoming such that, yes, in people's personal spaces, is becoming something. People are calling their significant other Okimi because of a video I made saying, oh, you can call your partner Okimi. While it might sound funny, right? It is a part of culture that we can never throw away. You walk around the streets and people have new slangs, new Yoruba slangs every now and then. Why don't we embrace that part of ourselves and see that our culture is beyond what we know and more of who we are
Mhm.
and who we are going to continue to be?
And I very much agree with you because I think there's no such thing as culture purity. So
Mhm.
there are many people that are purists out there that think culture should do more, or this is Bashin share, we don't change. But it
I
is
mean, people would argue that, oh, we're diluting culture. Is doing is actually not going to do any harm to culture. And the reason why I say that is because people do these things in their personal spaces. People have been doing it for years, and it's never going to change the outlook of culture. What is going to continue to destroy culture rather is us like promoting the vulgarity, like the vulgar side of things. Those are
exactly.
the things that like, can actually have like negative impact on our culture at the end of the day. But things such as, redefining part of culture in a good way,
To suit
we should
our
always be able to
modern
embrace these things because
understanding.
it's always good for the culture at the end of the
And
day.
I absolutely agree. One thing that I do love about our language and the expression of it, and you do it very well, is how we use euphemisms, right?
Hmm.
Ó ní fọ́nrán kan tẹ́ ẹ ṣe pẹ̀lú àrẹ̀mọ Gemini tí mo wò lẹ́nu ọjọ́ mẹ́ta yìí tí mo rò pé fọ́nrán yìí nǹkan tí èèyàn lè tó bá tó ń gbọ́ létí ọmọdé
It's everyday language.
kò tiẹ̀ lè mọ nǹkan tó ń jẹ́ bẹ́ẹ̀ like you won't even understand it but you the person who has a grasp of the language knows that the way you're using it is suggestive of something. So I really like that and I hope that we don't lose that because again those expressions are not quite as mainstream as before. So
Yeah,
how do we
let me
adapt?
make an example. Sorry to cut in here. Let me make
No,
an
no
example.
problem at all.
There's a part of that poem that we did, and it was just in the moment. So there's a part
Mm.
that says, ọjà nílé mi, ọmọye, obarin ohowa.
Yoruba.
Right? And it was born out of the expression, Asho Obomoyemo, Omoye ti rin ihoho ọjà. Now, when you look at that, right, when you look at that, it almost is not a good expression to use for a poem that is calling a woman to come over to your place. But when you look at the construct of it, right, pulling it out of Asho Bomoyemo, Omoye ti rin ihoho ọjà. Now, Oja has now become a safe place for that Omoye. Bóyá aṣọ bọ́mọye àbí ò bọ́mọye, máa bọ̀ nílé mi, things are going to be fine for you. So that line has cut beyond just poetry. It has gone deep into language and use of language and reference of parts
Reference
of
of
language.
something,
Because
yeah.
like we picked a whole expression that already exists and created a new life out of that expression.
Yeah.
Still
That's
communicating in
the
Yoruba, still very rich, and is something that never existed in the Yoruba, expression and culture. And now this is just giving birth to a new expression from within an expression that already exists in the same language. How beautiful.
absolutely. I cannot agree more.
Someone is saying here they are usually called Ashikpawe. That particular video, right, is never going to be a proverb. It's never going to take the place of proverbs. But it's going to do something. It's going to expose someone who doesn't
Who
even
does
care
not
about these programs to
to
the
that
system of
reference
Yoruba
point?
proverbs. Right? We all know very well that when we're making jokes, we all know very well that these are jokes. Even a child knows that this is a joke. Right? So we should do well to fight ourselves less, right? For being able to express ourselves and be free in language. A lot of people that fight for language can't speak Yoruba, can't express in Yoruba at a stretch.
And it is because they are somewhat close-minded about it that they are also not expanding their own learning in a sense. So I
Yeah,
think it's
yeah.
counterproductive to
It
be
is
so
counterproductive. Rigid.
prescriptive and prescriptive about how you and other people use language that you then are not able to explore and adapt it to other uses. So, Timama Berry, because you talked about collaborating, particularly like we are Ramadan and like how people should look at these things more. What does that cooperation, collaboration when it comes to language, what does that look like to you? How can we better achieve that without someone saying, "Oh, not to share you that it's Umbasada is important and Yoruba or this or that." How can we encourage forward movement that is not divisive?
I feel like certain things, whether we like it or not, have to be confronted. But
Like
they have
like
to be confronted.
the king.
And and that brings me to one of the solutions to this problem of attacking ourselves. The more people are able to do it well and do it so clean without ever being, I mean, my own problem would always be vulgarity. Say for example, I made that proverb content based off of somebody's long line of tweets. I'd seen the comments under it. I'd seen the negative ones and I'd seen the positive ones. And I'd seen how much, it called people's attention to those things. And now people are asking, oh, what's the actual proverb? They've laughed about it. Now they're
Interest
asking,
now.
what's the actual proverb? And then the video that follows is an actual correction to that. Not correction, but like, oh, this is the actual original version of that
Original.
proverb. And then the moment you now learn the original version, it's not like, oh, now the first one sounds even funnier now that I know the actual thing. But if I'm going to, be serious or be in any space where I actually need to use the expressions well, I'm able to reference those expressions because I learned them by laughing about them, right? If you can do more of these things, putting disclaimers, trying to keep them as clean as possible, trying to make it obvious that, oh, this is just an extension of what is, and not necessarily something that destroys what is, right? I feel like if more of us are able to make it so that we express Yoruba on a very free surface, I'm free to express myself. I can express myself. I can use Yoruba language as I feel, as I see fit. And I mean, because that's what I do. I basically use Yoruba language regardless of.
And to buttress your point, at least this is something that someone said to me, a professor, mentor of mine, that what is the most violated, bastardized language in the world? It's none other than English, and it's also the universal language. So we have to get to a level of comfort with people using Yoruba as they see fit on any level to allow the language to actually grow and to make the impact it
Yes,
can make.
yes.
And there's another saying in writerly circles that to be able to write, in an elevated style, you have to first know the rules and then you can break the rules, and that's good writing.
Mhm.
So, in
And
a
then
sense,
I mean,
you come from a background of knowing what is right. Okay, Leo Batoje Walopisi, but then it shouldn't stop there. It should then be you adapting that and putting that to your use in whatever flights of fancy you have, and to be able to move that beyond and let it enter into other spaces. And I think that's what you're doing, and that's the arguments you're making to those people that think purity is everything. Purity for me
what
is
happens? What happens? I mean, what happens when we die? What happens when we're not here anymore? Those are I feel like those are the things that we should be concerned about,
the
safe, not
questions
how
that keep us
somebody is
awake
speaking
at night.
Yoruba. Those are the questions that should keep us concerned. Like, what happens in the next? What happens to the Yoruba language in the next, say, 50 years, 100 years? But I mean, the point where that like the social media space is now filled with so many people that are expressing in Yoruba language, right? If you go to the UK now, there's so many creators in the UK that are creating content using Yoruba language. And that wouldn't have if some people had not made it such that, hey, this piece, you can actually speak Yoruba and there are listeners for you. If those years of a few of us popping up, I mean, I remember very well there was Mota was doing content in Yoruba, and then there was a few more people, other people, and then till up to this moment, so we're having more and more people pop up on the space. And the only reason why they'll pop up on the space is not because you have come to do a GOB. It's because you've come to make it such that it feels like I'm just watching content as I would in English.
Mhm.
And so what we've done in that space is we have broken the language out of is the language of Yoruba people to a
More, yeah.
language of is one of the everyday languages on
Like
social media.
again, we're globalizing it. This is almost like the second global
And it's and
movement.
it's and it's and it's, and it's happening very simply. Like it doesn't have to be so difficult. But when you make people feel like there is more to it than the language of a people, they'll be scared towards approaching the language, not to not talk of using the language, expressing in the language.
And it also,
There's a lady now who speaks Yoruba on social media, and her Yoruba is interesting to listen to, but she does it every day. And the reason why she's doing it every day is because more and more people are accepting that form of Yoruba that she's expressing with. And I promise you, she's good. She's only going to get better at her Yoruba. Except she wants to actually stay like that, just to keep comical effect. She's going to improve her Yoruba.
yeah.
So because of her, somebody else somewhere is getting inspired, who can speak fluent Yoruba to start making content in Yoruba. And so
My
you now see more
You do
people
make a
coming
point
in.
about not just limiting it to the comical effect, though. Because again,
Yes,
it does
yes,
get right, it gets stale, it gets you're like, mélòó nínú kiní ni?" Like so, yeah, just elevating it beyond. Yes, it might start off comical, but you should
exactly. But at the end of the
have a
day,
reason. What's the purpose behind it? It's not just to make people laugh, because I know social media, everybody, but no, but yeah, no, we have to measure the impact and not just the laughs and
I'm
not
not
the
just
likes and
about.
clicks.
Yeah.
Actually. So, you've done a lot, obviously. You've had lots of experiences. What is the one risk that you say you've taken in your career, personal life, as it relates to Yoruba? That
Okay. So whether we like it or not, right? Yoruba is still niche. It's still a niche. And that for me has been the major bottleneck. I remember at the point in 2021 when I was really depressed about this whole thing. And I was depressed because I realized that whether I like it or not, right, Yoruba was a box. But then I had to now face the place of out of the box. You can create something so big that the box will never be ignored again. So yes, fine, quite all right. Yoruba was limiting my audience. It limited my reach at a point. But thanks to the help of my mentor, right, I was able to realize that this thing that you're doing is worth the struggle, is worth the pain, is worth the patience to see it grow into something so meaningful at the end of the day that you'll be proud of yourself. But when you're starting out, it feels like I'm limited as to who can listen to me. I'm limited as to the places I can pull out resources from, which is the most
Mm-hmm.
important. Brands will reach out to me, and there would always be an angle to reaching out to me, right? The angle is, okay, well, we need him because we want to communicate specifically to Yoruba people, or we need him because we want to communicate to people in the southwest of Nigeria, and less of, or we need him because he's an influencer.
Mm-hmm.
If it was about the money, my concern would be, let me be an influencer first, and then Yoruba bit comes later.
For you.
But because of the kind of person I am, I am usually very concerned about the impact of my work and my own purpose in itself. Like, what purpose am I fulfilling exactly? So it's made making money from this thing a little more difficult than it should be.
But
Because
hopefully the thing will
I
justify
remember
it.
when I was going to focus on this as a career, it was because I saw that my actual career was helping it suffer.
Mm.
Like, it was really suffering big time. So I
What
looked
was
at
your
it.
career? What was your other career?
Oh, it was in
Before you-
education. I was creating content in education.
Okay.
So I just had to see myself and take a very big bet and gamble. So I left my job. I left the path of having a career. I decided to face content creation in Yoruba as a career. So I remember that luckily for me, I'd taken a few steps to like build products around what I'm doing. Products such as birthday shoutouts. Recently, I started the caps as a product, and we're going to be launching in this December. I MC events as well. I make videos for brands. In fact, it's just this evening. Time Timo step out here. I was getting a box from there's a stage play happening soon from Hantif Studios, and it's a immersive stage play where the audience are going to be very much a part of the stage play, right? And you realize that this came to me because I've sort of now become a culture custodian, and
Mhm.
because the play is very much tied to culture, they've called me to say, okay, come here, let's do this, which is
Mhm.
where my conversation started. The box and how the box cannot be a place from which you tap into outside the box, and then everybody outside the box cannot exactly ignore the box, and
Yeah.
it's in how we do it. I remember very well, like over and over again, I've been concerned with my content because my content, to a very large extent, feels like it's making like you're trying to make too much sense. You're trying to be too serious, right? How do we balance that in this social media age where everybody just wants to be entertained, right? I've been frustrated so much that I was thinking maybe I should start doing content. What's it called? I should start making comedy skits in Yoruba. I have
Mhm.
thought of putting a few vulgar things here and there just so that it can attract more people. But
Mhm.
because again we are who we are and our standards sometimes like some of us will have standards that no matter how hard things get,
You
we would
can.
almost not be able to compromise on those standards.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's what has kept my content clean and the way it is. It has made things slow for me. It has made it slow for me because I know very well like there are certain contents that, for example, my vlogs. If I had made them speaking English, it would communicate to more people and like have more views. But because I'm
Mhm.
communicating Yoruba, chances of somebody even swiping is very
Yeah.
high, right? So
Taking.
there are all those constructs, small around my work that I'm not trying to like small, just gradually break them and show
Mhm.
that there is gold here in the Yoruba, content creation space. And I'm hoping that, I'm hoping that in 2026 I'm able to really break the financial part of things and show to people who are aspiring, because I'm sure that a good number of people are aspiring to do what I do. But when they look on one side, like, I don't think Lumee is making so much money from this. Mama retracts there. But I tell you, the moment I start making money from this thing and it's so obvious, influx Yoruba content creators here is going to increase. And I'm sure that there are people who are already
I'm sure
interested.
that the gamble is already paying off on some level. Again, this thing
Yes,
starts
yes, it is.
and
It
then
is.
have a
It
more
is.
exponential effect. So,
Mm-hmm.
màá ní ẹ fọkàn yín balẹ̀. Nǹkan tẹ̀ ń ṣe, àwa tá à ń rí à ń rí. Kò
Mm.
dẹ̀ ní, like once you do it with purpose and with deliberation, and you're putting quality out, quality speaks for itself a lot of the time.
Then,
And
yeah.
it's not quick, it's not fast,
It really
But
is not quick. Oh. It really is not quick.
yeah, but we know sometimes remember I mean quickly the shaking. Where's the money? Money is not rolling in, but
I mean,
somehow
I
it's
could have
important.
just found a path in tech and just be fine.
But there's a reason why we keep doing what we're doing, and we'll remember that. Ekale, every for Lauren Shaw.
Yeah,
Ẹlẹ́ni
I be
ìbéèrè
following
báwọn kọ
sure.
ìbéèrè mi sí abala wa ká bá lè rí kà jáde fún olóòtú àgbà. But meanwhile, we're talking about style and we're talking about collaboration. So we'll go on a lighter note. Olóòtú àgbà, tá a bá ti rí yín báyìí àti rọ́mọlúàbí.
Hmm.
Like we just see in your manner, in your, your way of being, you're so very, you seem like the epitome of it. Your politeness, your care, your in interacting with people, everything, right? And then with that, you have an impeccable sense of style that is very, what some people would associate in their minds with your body one. Can you tell us a bit about this popular characterization of this suave, single Yoruba male? And do you think the identity is misunderstood in any way? Because, yeah,
So I feel like to a
you
very large
epitomize that
extent,
style.
right? Huh?
See Egbo blushing, but he dresses well. Shembo, dressing, yeah. Oh, like that one, we cannot take it from the man. So tell us
To a
about it.
large extent, right? I would say that my lovey-dovey content are sort of a rebellion towards the narrative of Yoruba men and how demonic they are. Let's not forget that this one, anybody say what you like. Men generally throughout the world are terrible, right? But Yoruba men, they become branded like the PR as sports because
But is it
somehow,
bad
some
PR all the time? Is it necessarily that tag for
yeah.
me?
I'm coming to where the
Influential
I'm coming to where the
authentic,
problem is. I'm coming to where the
yeah,
problem is. You
tell
know, I
us.
already established that. I already established that the male gender,
Male
whether
gender,
we like it or not,
you
we're a
belong
special gender, right?
special.
Now, tẹ́bá wá lẹ̀ yẹn pọ̀ mọ́ male gender tó wá jọmọ Yorùbá, right? A Yoruba man, whether he likes it or not, has the ability to be very romantic and to be
Yeah.
very good with romantic expressions. Because it is in who we are.
It
We
is
are
ingrained in you from natural.
we're naturally expressive people. Tẹ́ bá gbọ́ àwọn èébú Yorùbá, like tó ń bẹ̀yàn bá farabalẹ̀ jókòó tó bá bu yín Yorùbá. Tó fa kò ń ṣe pé àwọn èébú all those Ìbàdàn ẹlẹ́nu like somebody actually sits down to deconstruct you as a person, it would hit you. It's the same thing that happens in a Yoruba man um who wants to get money from his friend, right? There are things you would say in Yoruba to get that money. You want to get somebody's attention. There are ways present your words that ìyẹn tó bá mọ̀rọ̀ ẹ̀ lò dáadáa ò bí tiwa
Present
báyìí.
yourself to.
Kò sí ọgbọ́n tó fẹ́ lò, kò sí bó ṣe fẹ́ yí tó fẹ́ yí wàá padà ṣe tèmi. Now, when you now mix that with a Yoruba man who is trying to woo a woman, ó wá fi Yorùbá ṣiṣẹ́ yẹn for like months, ó fọ́ fún tán, ó wá hu ìwà ọkùnrin at the end of the day, á wá di Yorùbá dùn because the pain is worse with a Yoruba man.
Because yeah, ó ti domi síwájú àbí,
Ó ti
right?
right lọ́wọ́ àwọn ọ̀rọ̀ tẹ́ ti sọ sẹ́yìn àwọn kan tó ti wà lórí ọmọ náà pé ọkàn ti balẹ̀. But at the end of the day, ọkùnrin wá ṣe iṣẹ́ ọkùnrin, right? But for me, I would always now keep the place that kò sí bó ṣe fẹ́ rí àwọn èèyàn kan wà tó ṣe pé èèyàn dáadáa ṣì ni wọ́n, ọkùnrin dáadáa ṣì ni wọ́n. The percentage might be very low, whether even under 0.1, but there are good men that don't cheat, right? There are men that are not going about breaking people's hearts, right? And that is the brand of Yoruba man that I try to stand for, right? In my expressions, in the things I say. Quite all right, they would always misunderstand. But I think my version and the version that I have, created and presented has, to a very large extent, just been blushed over. Even when people say stuff like, Yoruba kinikon, there will still be a part of them that is blushing to the whole thing, right? And for me, it feels like, yeah, that's what's important for me. If you
Yeah,
keep pushing it in that light, right? We're now able to see a version of Yoruba men that are
it's
sweet
more,
talkers.
yeah, more
It's
holistic
good.
in some way. It gives
Yeah,
us
yeah.
the
There's a version of Yoruba men that are good, and
Mhm.
don't be scared if they tell you that they love you and they express these things. Enjoy it, soak it, and
But
let it marinate.
the thing though is
But at the same time,
Kamajale.
would you know the lack of insurance?
Kamakuro Kamajale. At least where me, I don't know how Yoruba men are seen in Nigeria. But níbi tí èmi wà, Yoruba men are very highly sought after. Nigerian men, but particularly Yoruba men.
Yoruba
Because
men.
again, it's all of these things you say, that ability to woo a woman and make her
And honestly, it shows even in our interaction with our significant other. A Yoruba man who is romantic, you can tell. A romantic Yoruba man, you can tell. And a Yoruba man that wants to use romance to get what he wants to. Ó kù sọ́wọ́ obìnrin náà kó fojú.
No, but I find it a very interesting concept. Every following from me or read.
Ẹ má máa dá wọn lóhùn tiwọn.
To call. Torí mo máa ń bá wọn náà sọ̀rọ̀ nípa Yorùbá man àti Talanjọ. Mo máa ń bá wọn sọ̀rọ̀ nípa this Yorùbá man phenomenon. And I always say the Yoruba demon is misunderstood.
Yep.
Because he has a particular way of being that is very attractive and very appealing to the female. And then again, there's just all these other parts that are very typically male and that can work against that initial impression of them. But essentially, I see where it is coming from. Having, my fathers, my uncles, my brothers, I can see where that is groomed, and even our mothers as well. Because even the Yoruba, ọkùnrin Yorùbá ṣe máa bá ìyá ẹ̀ sọ̀rọ̀. Bó ṣe máa ṣe ìṣesí sí àwọn àǹtí, ìdọ̀bálẹ̀ òǹpẹ́, all of that. There are lots of ways in which a Yoruba man's mind has been conditioned from the home to be nurturing and affectionate towards women. And that easily comes across when they are meeting other women outside of the home. But ṣe máa ṣe sí wọ̀, tó máa rò pé àwọn ọmọ special gan náà ló ṣe máa ṣe sí Yẹ́misí, ló ṣe máa ṣe sí Amaka, ló ṣe máa. And of course, everybody wants a piece of this gorgeous, impeccably styled, and romantic male. So, Mokope, a Yoruba man only needs to stay in himself, and he gets the labels.
I mean, now I get labels, and I'm just being me. I'm just being my Yoruba self. So,
But
look at the
I'm not worry, and I think more people than care to admit understand. But again, hopefully we're treating each other with issue for delving into that. I just wanted to pick you up on that. And again, because you were talking about style collaborations, it's what we see. We enjoy those pictures, those videos of you very styled, and it's beautiful to see, and it shows again that's another aspect of culture, because the Yoruba male is very passionate, fashion savvy. Àwọn obìnrin nìkan kọ́ la máa ń ṣe fashion, àwọn ọkùnrin gan wọ́n ní fashion gan. I remember how and that's an aspect of culture.
Do you know that Yoruba men wear anklets?
Sorry? Oh yeah.
Yoruba men wear anklets. It is one of the fashion pieces for Yoruba men that I absolutely love, and I can't wait to explore that part.
Yes, that is something I just wanted to put out there because I knew you'd do it justice. So we're rounding up now.
There's a question down here. Has he been under pressure to switch his content from Yoruba language to English? I will never ever. I repeat. I mean, the only thing I would do is mix some English to it because we're trying to sell a global Yoruba brand, right? And in doing that, language for me becomes a tool and not a main focus, a major focus. Mo ṣe àṣe content mo fi German sí kí German má bàa sọnù. Ẹ̀kan kan tí máa rántí, màá fi German sentence kan àbí méjì màá tún sọ túmọ̀ ẹ̀, màá yí mọ́ nínú ẹ̀. Because that way, language becomes a tool that we use to, spread the tentacles of
exactly what it should be.
But pé màá kúrò lórí English Yorùbá máa bọ́ sí English ẹ̀ kódà gan vlog mi tẹ́lẹ̀tẹ́lẹ̀ Gẹ̀ẹ́sì mo máa fi ń ṣe òye mo máa fi ń ṣe mo ti padà báyìí mo ti sọ di Yorùbá mo máa fi ń ṣe vlog mi ẹ̀yin tèmi ẹ bá mi ká lọ mò ń lọ sí ìlú Cairo kìnìkan mi ò fẹ́ mọ bí tí mò ń lọ nílé ayé báyìí tí màá fẹ́ ṣe vlog pé ẹ bá mi ká lọ ẹ jẹ́ àjọ ohun tí ojú mi rí o tí mi ní ṣe ní èdè Yorùbá. So I mean I would never got to the point where
it's true for many people. Yoruba has a way of getting you and keeping you. And keeping you loyal.
Yoruba has gotten me and kept me.
What question would you have liked to ask you that would give us even more insight into you?
I don't think there's anything
that we may not have touched on yet? I don't want to miss
No,
anything.
I feel like, so I've told my story so many times that I know the areas of it that if it was missing, I
Mo
would be
fẹ́
able
wá
to
wá
identify.
ibi tá à sí ìdè táwọn èèyàn ń dé yẹn, mo fẹ́ ìyẹn gangan ni mo fẹ́ wá jáde.
Àfi tẹ bá ní béèrè yẹn tẹ ní béèrè yẹn lọ́wọ́ ló kù, but ní tèmi o, kò sí tí a fẹ́ sọ tí mi ti sọ dárí.
Ṣé ẹ ní ìbéèrè fún mi?
Ìgbà wo la jọ máa ṣe content? Ìbéèrè tèmi nìyẹn.
Anytime, see, tẹ́ bá ti lóyá báyìí mò ń bọ̀ nìyẹn. Ẹ má worry.
Kò sí ọ̀nà
Anytime,
àjọ máa sọ̀rọ̀
anytime. Ẹ jẹ́
àjọ
àwọn
máa
sọ̀rọ̀.
sọ̀rọ̀.
I saw in camera, ẹ ṣeun gan. I will very much look forward to it. But this is the start of something, and I hope we continue to have a relationship going forward. How do we become educated on the weapons of cultural extinction? How is something
So potent, able to become bastardized.
How do we become educated on the weapons of cultural extinction? I personally think extinction starts from something being static. Anything that's static, not open to change, is pretty much already dying. But that's my take. Olootu agba, kí lẹ̀yin rí sí?
So to the part of how something so potent is able to become bastardized, there are two directions to it I can think of at the moment. Not saying that, I mean, this statement is not absolute. There's a place of humans, right? And then there's a place of absence of authority and structure. It is what the Yoruba culture and language is suffering and might continue to suffer for a long time. In the sense that people have done a good amount of work to, keep the culture rich, literary works and all of that. But there's a limited number of people that eventually get exposed to those works, right? As a people, I don't think we have that level of awareness of our culture and care for it that will not agree as a people to not bastardize it. Every day on the streets, right? Somebody's messing with the language and culture. If you
Is
go
that
to
necessarily a
places,
bad thing? Can I ask? Because I have this question. Like missing to some part, like now we don't have a highly functioning but a functioning language body that curates language and these are the new entries into language, these are what's also like. But basically that stands as sort of like almost a gatekeeper for language. So some other languages have that, but nonetheless, people will use language how they choose to use it. Language is like air, it is free. You only have to acquire the language somewhat, and then you can use it however you see fit. So there is a place for language curation, language making. But isn't there also a place for free use of language, like free speech?
but I feel like in this case, right, the case of bastardization, I still don't know where I stand exactly on this debate, being that a part of me, right, a part of me would always say everywhere you go to in the world, it is happening, just as it is happening to Yoruba language. There are Germans who speak colloquial German, right? There are English who speak like English that you'd be like, English not shidele. I feel like those things would always be a constant in our culture. Where we're able to now be on the safer side is collective consciousness. I don't know how we're going to get there to that level of consciousness about our culture and language, to the point where from home to home, there's a sense of don't play with Yoruba language or don't mess with the Yoruba language. I feel like that's the only thing that can limit this bastardization that we talk about. Because still, regardless of how culture will constantly move and all of that, there's always that tiny speck of space where people are actually, just all over the place being very vulgar and very anyhow with language. You hear certain things every day and they're like, ah. But the truth, like you said, is you can't take these things away from people. People would always, make use of language freely, do as they please with language. speak as they want with
So they're doing
language.
standard language, standard,
Yeah,
standardized
yeah,
language. All
yes,
languages
yes.
have their standardized dialect,
Form,
right?
form,
Even
yes,
the
yes.
English language has it. So if you will write an English exam, there's a particular kind of language that you will need to write to be able to pass that examination. The same applies for Yoruba, most other languages, around.
And then
However,
region by region, you find
languages
people
will
doing
always
like
have dialects, which are the regional languages. Or like now, a lot of time I very much enjoy UK rap, grime. And why? They use English, but they use English in a way that is
roadmans.
different, and I like it. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that way is developed from their own roots of like the council town,
Where they
council
come
town, and all of
from,
that, and the
living in
street.
projects and all of
Why
that.
would we
Yes.
say that is not viable? It is their use of the language. They will not go and write that in GCSEs when they are doing their GCSEs. Hopefully, at least they will not pass if they do.
Hopefully.
But so I feel like there's a certain looseness that we have to adapt, while also letting places like Ebifolo Insurance for them, Center for Yoruba Engineering, do their work. We'd like to see more of that impact as well, and continuing to offer standardized Yoruba language and making it more and more, richer and more accessible to people. So I think maybe you raised two very important points about how people use it and also how that language adapts to itself as well.
As for structure, I don't know. People are doing a lot of work, but
Science in engineering, like it is someone I'm hoping to get on here. So I'll be science in Yoruba, sorry.
science in Yoruba, yes, yes,
Because
it's
I'm
doing a
just
lot of
like,
work in this
I need
space
to
as well.
find out how you do what you do because again, Arojinle, no shit. Oh, and I feel like he's taking on almost the burden of a body like this Yoruba engineering or any language policing body. Like, how do we
I
adapt
think
our language and
that's what
modern day?
social I think that's what social media has given us. A space to do the work and show us while doing the work. Because at the end of the day, the number of things he's put together over the years is what he's now giving us. Because I'm
And
sure that he's
also
been
spark
writing.
policy interest as well, eventually. Because I
Mm-hmm.
think when you're going to see our language bodies, not kí ló dé tó jẹ́, this is down to one person.
Or Oluwayi, right? Bodies and organizations and all of these things, there's
Yes,
always
this,
more to it than the
um,
actual body and the organization. There are always so many people. There are always, different protocols and a lot of things happening, funding, this and that, yada yada. But when one person takes it upon himself to do the work, is I'm not gonna say it's easier, but like he has the liberty to do the work and keep it going without any constraints or whatever.
politics
So
around
I
it.
feel like
But I
that's what
feel
we are
like
hearing from social
what
media as well.
what is also useful about kind of work he does is hopefully it can then inspire those people in these places to
Yeah,
fight
yeah.
out the politics and the red tape and all of that to actually give this a good look. Like this is if there's no demand for this person wouldn't have to do this. So what's the demand and how can we respond even though things are slow and sluggish and there's a lot of obstacles in the way. How do we respond to that? And
Mm.
any combat money? Is this a born marriage? My junior sister is single. Okay, let us look
Next,
Sorry, that one too is a question that we always have.
that's not a,
Boy,
that's not a question for this space. That's not a valid question.
níbo
I
ni
choose not to
wọ́n ti
answer.
lè ta ṣé DM ni ṣé kó slide sí DM mi
Not familiar.
kó fi yín lẹ̀ okay but ẹ jẹ́ bẹ̀rẹ̀
I'm a preacher of love that's not playing in that field.
but why kí ló dé kí ló
Ẹ
dé
ṣáà
ah ah
ẹ ṣáà máa wò mí ràn. Ẹ ṣáà máa wò mí
ṣé
ràn.
ọjọ́ kan ẹ̀kọ́ gbé jáde fún ẹ sọ pé ó dẹ̀ ti ṣẹlẹ̀ ó dẹ̀ ti rí bẹ́ẹ̀ nìyẹn o.
Ọ̀rọ̀ bá ti rí bá ṣe fẹ́ ká máa dúpẹ́ lókàn.
All right. So, what one question would you like me to ask my next guest, whoever that person is? Do you have like a question that you think will spark some
My
conversation
question for
for the
every
man
guest that comes on here
about
that has anything to do
confidence?
with Yoruba, eh,
Mm-hmm.
is how do we move forward as a people, as a culture, as a language? How do we progress? Like, yes, we know where we are. We know the work that slave masters have done, what has been done to our mindsets. We know all these things. Okay, quite all right. As a mobile, okay, now as a people, what's the next movement? How do we move forward from here? How do we progress from here? What's to happen to our education system? What's to happen to the language education system? what's going to happen to, the language. See, I feel like to a very large extent, right, schools are suffering right now, right? Institutions are suffering, especially in this country. But yeah, private invest in you, but yeah, governments in you, institutions are suffering. And what that would do is it would impact how much the students are going to absorb in the time when they are studying. So these are people that are supposed to be a product of Yoruba, say Yoruba studies, for example, coming out with less than they should compared to their older counterparts who have studied Yoruba years before now. So these are concerns that I usually have. I'm like, I hope this is not really how it's going on.
But if you
The way
were
I'm
to answer
observing.
that question, what would you say is the one thing that if you would limit it to Nkokan Lalishi as a people or as a government kill
I feel like even my solution has like sort of a question in it. Solution is, how do we grow a collective consciousness towards our culture and language? I feel like the moment those things are in place, right? Ìṣọwọ́ tá fi máa gbìyànjú lórí advancement culture and language wàá yàtọ̀ sí pé èèyàn ń ṣe torí pé kóun náà lè di content creator, àbí tó ń ṣe torí pé kóun náà lè fi ibi content creator pawó kan lórí pé òun náà gbọ́ Yorùbá, àbí kó kàn lè show pé Yorùbá kìíní kan lòun náà. Years ago, like say, and years ago tí mo sọ kò tí tó 3-4 years, the large sum of what we have on social media as content creators in Yoruba culture are all those akewi. Àwọn náà ṣì dominate, like ní content on social media too. And I'm not trying to shit on anybody, but when you look at most of their works, they're usually not clean. They're usually not like refined and properly put together. It's just a few persons who are Kiwis and stuff like don't need to refine. But a lot now people just do it, and then it's there all over social media. And realize that somebody who's looking for the Oriki Jebu. I fell victim to that mistake as well when I just started out. Someone wants to do Oriki Jebu, wants to learn Oriki Jebu, finds a video on social media about Oriki Jebu, and it turns out that Oriki Jebu is actually not exactly Oriki Jebu that the person has delivered, and this does some harm to our culture, our language, whether you like it or not. So until we get to the point where like we're all collectively very conscious of our language, how we use them, and particularly how we present them to the public, I think that's what we need to figure out. I don't know how we're going to figure it out, but I feel like that's one of the things that we need to figure out as a people if we're going to progress positively with language and culture.
That makes sense. Collective consciousness. That's true. That is very true. And I think it's just the fact that, again, because we're all doing different things from different perspectives in different places, from different backgrounds, is that bringing it all together to make it make sense, and also owning it in a sense that don't just put anything out there, because that thing you've put out there hastily,
you're inspiring somebody else
to take as authority and run away with. And then, so what are we really doing are we really helping? So it's that sense of responsibility, owning it, and being sure that we will continue on shape. Yeah, fact checking as well as much as it's possible. Lóòótọ́, bá ṣe sọ, nǹkan púpọ̀ ti sọnù, ṣùgbọ́n we have to be able to try and do the research. And I think ìwádìí gidigidi a ní láti máa ṣe fún irú àwa tá a taking up the big task of working with Yoruba, and Elédùmarè á jẹ́ kí ó máa gbòòrò sí. An agency to protect the elderly in Yoruba culture might be a way forward. To protect the elderly. We'll have to talk more about that in private.
I think it will be. I think the protection will be as go to law.
Well, I don't mind that. I'm so glad that you parabale, conju, and money láti long and everything. Thank you so much for your time.
Ẹ̀yin màmá mi lẹ pè mí, wọn ò tó bẹ́ẹ̀. Wọn ò tó nínú nǹkan jù ẹ̀yin lẹ ṣe jù.
So, what do you have? Do you have any projects lined up in the next year? It's a fair cat or that you want to make people aware of.
So we're launching Lumee Studios proper from next year.
Okay, what's that about?
What we're doing at Lumee Studios is basically everything I've been doing and trying to do. We want to now put structure to it such that it becomes a template for other culture creatives. Right, such that, okay, we'll say Lumee Studios is a media house. Print, video, audio, and audio visual. right? We're churning out content using Olootu Agba's face as the prototype to start, right? And then we're now able to like now bring in other creators like myself or who are interested in doing what I currently do into this space, help them start and then run off on their own, trajectory. So it's not like everybody's not going to be sounding like Olootu Agba. But you want to start creating content as a Yoruba content creator, come around, right? Would just push you through, help people structure to your work and make it make sense when you eventually start to, roll out
And that
consistently on it.
ties in with what you said about also taking collective responsibility as well. So because you're being intentional about it, helping to grow another crop of intentional creators is, it sounds like a big
Mhm.
and fantastic thing to embark on. I hope it goes
So,
well.
so, so,
Keep
so
us
that
updated.
should be one of our, major highlights in terms of what we're doing next year. There's also a cap brand or Yoruba fashion brand, Badi. And basically, what we're trying to do is have people. Yes, we have a good number of people that wear this now, like rock this now, because it's now cool. Back in the day, wearing this would people would see you as it's not a cool guy, right? But now
Mhm.
people are literally people are throwing on shirts and then putting a Yoruba cap on it, right? So we're not trying to create a market for Yoruba fashion the market already exists. We're not doing anything new. What we're just doing is we're doing it such that it now becomes what you see on Temu,
Ṣé
right? Seeing our caps on Temu, seeing other designs of caps.
tá a bá tiẹ̀ ṣé
Create
wọ́n máa bá wa ṣe ni? Ṣé Temu yẹn àti Shein wọ́n máa kó gbogbo ẹ̀ jáde so might as
so
well
so
be
so
doing
so
it.
the idea is to now make it something. People are already selling caps, people are buying caps, but our idea is to make it feel like, oh, it's just another face cap, but from the Yoruba tribe of Nigeria, right? So whichever work we have to do.
So even move it beyond just the people affiliated with the culture, so anybody can
Exactly,
rock up in
exactly,
Yoruba.
exactly, exactly. So it's going to cut
Okay.
across caps, different designs for caps made with Ashoke, clothes, even shoes at some point, and all of that. So
So that's Bade, like with Bade,
Bade,
BGBA.
GBADE, Bade, as per my name, I'm Bade Geshin.
Lovely. Ẹ kú
Yeah.
iṣẹ́ o. I hope to
Mm.
see all of this. Tẹ bá dẹ̀ fẹ́ extend ẹ̀ sáwọn obìnrin náà, ẹ jẹ́ ká mọ̀ ṣé gèlè ní tiwa ni àbí kí ni ṣe
Kò sí ọ̀nà.
àbí ọkùnrin nìkan lèyí tẹ̀ ń ṣe.
Kì í ṣọkùnrin nìkan ló wà fún, kì í ṣọkùnrin
Ẹ
nìkan.
fà wá náà sọ́kàn. All right.
Kò
Thank
sí
you so
ọ̀nà, kò
much.
sí ọ̀nà. Thank you very
Ọ̀nà
much for
tó
having me.
kásẹ̀lẹ̀ ẹ fún àwọn tó ń wò wá àti èmi náà ní ìyànjú in your usual style if possible mo mọ̀ pé mo ní kẹ́ extemporize ni but I'm sure you're up to the task. All well wishes for the new year because that is your thing, so we cannot finish without you at least giving us a taste of the sweet medicine you're always giving to your followers.
Gbogbo wa pátápátá ni mo kí tí mo ò ní olódì kan. Màá kí wa pé a kú ọdún. Bẹ́ẹ̀ sì rèé, a kú òyèdún. Gbogbo aládùúrà wípé oṣù bàbà yìí kò ní bà wá lábàjù tó fi di pé a ò ní lè gbádùn àsìkò ọdún yìí. Lágbára Ọlọ́run, tèmi tiyín náà lájọ rí ọdún tí ń bọ̀. Nínú ìlera tó pé, nínú àlàáfíà, láàyè àti lálàáfíà ara tó pé. Lágbára Ọlọ́run ọba mi Èdùmàrè. Ẹ ò ní sọnù, mi ò ní sọnù. Gbogbo apátápátá ọ̀kọ̀ọ̀kan wa báyìí kò ní sọnù láṣẹ Èdùmàrè. Orúkọ mi ò yí padà, Olóòtú àgbà Lumee pírẹsẹ́ńtà tó yáyè. Èmi náà rèé pẹ̀lú màmá wa the one and only Yorubamama, gbogbo social media pátápátá fáàbàdà tó ṣe wípé Ọlọ́run ọba mi òǹdè Èdùmàrè ní fi yín sílẹ̀. Bẹ́ẹ̀ sì rèé, àti ṣe kò ní nira fún yín, àti gbìyànjú kò ní nira fún yín. Ẹ̀yin gangan lálẹ́ gangan ni the original Olóòtú tó gbé Olóòtú àgbà wá sórí ètò. To everyone who has been here with us, I'd like to say a very warm thank you. I know that the numbers were really, really minute, but I'm sure that looking at numbers so far, I can tell that I think like 8 of you stayed with us throughout this conversation, and I do not take that for granted. Mama sọ kínní kan tí máa ṣe fún wọn sí tó bá jẹ́ pé èèyàn 500 ló padà á dùn mí lóòótọ́ pé nọ́mbà yẹn ò pọ̀. But what I always look at is for those 500 to interact with the content, it means something to them. And I hope that, those of us that have been here today, that it means something to every single one of us here. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have suggestions for what I can do to make my content better. I always say, like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going to. It has been people driving me and driving my work. So please and please feel free to reach out to me if there's any suggestions and anything you'd like to say. Ẹ ṣeun gan ni o. Yorùbá Mama, mo dúpẹ́
So
pé ẹ gbé
was
mi wá sórí
honored
ètò
and
yìí.
Most qualifying, if there's any suggestions, we don't want naysayers per se. As much as yes, critical
When they come, we can
feedback
tell
is
and we
good.
know how to deal with them. And yeah, worry.
Ó dáa, màá fi yín lẹ̀ láti deal pẹ̀lú wọn yẹn. Because again, you have to appreciate the art, the craft, the thoughts that's been put into it. Let's not be quick to rubbish things, and let's see what's good. Even if we're giving feedback, let feedback always be couched in that space between, oh, this is a good thing, and also I want you to do better in this way. Actually, we always value such feedback. So Lumee Olootu àgbàwẹ́ yìí máa kọ́ mi bí n ṣe máa pé kíyẹn jálẹ̀, mo ti ń gbìyànjú àti gbọ́ bẹ́ ṣe ń sọ, ẹ lè bá mi tún sọ kí kó ba lè kó dúró sí mi lórí dáadáa.
Olootu Agba Lumee.
Olootu àgbà
Presenter to Yayi. So presenter to Yayi is beloved presenter. Like people love him.
ó lè mú.
You know the way radio hosts then will say your favorite on-air presenter right now, Kiniko of whatever FM. So Olootu Agba Lumee. Presenter to Yayi. Jagunlabi. I don't want to actually be Jagunlabi, but it sounds cool. So Jagunlabi team para ile bí ẹni pé ara oko. So it summons those at home like they are far away. So when he speaks, it's like everybody's like, oh.
Olootu àgbà Lumee, presenter to Yayi. Jagunlabi ti ń para ilé bí ti ń para oko.
Then I just add the global Yoruba voice, the global storyteller, Lágbára Ọlọ́run.
Láṣẹ Èdùmàrè. Ẹ ṣeun púpọ̀. Thank you very much. And to all our listeners and viewers and followers, come back to this video. I'll put it up. Please join the conversation. Thank you for being here with us. We will see you at the next one. Ẹ ṣeun púpọ̀. Olootu àgbà Lumee. I'm very grateful. Ẹ ṣé o tí mo pè ní ẹ̀dẹ̀jẹ́ mi. I do not take
Thank you for deeming me worthy of saying a few things here. Sure.
always. Ó dàbọ̀.
Ire o. Ẹ ṣé o.